What's your favorite thing about the rain? Is it the way it sounds or how it smells? Maybe it reminds you of a special place or a cozy feeling. Rain is different for everyone, but one thing's for sure, it's perfect for reading. It may also inspire you to write. But why exactly? Well, it's a way of showing how our experiences shape the emotions we associate with everyday occurrences. This principle applies not only to rain, but to various aspects of life. Our unique blend of past experiences, memories, and emotions gives rise to our distinctive writing voice. Our personal narrative sets us apart, and recognizing and embracing these elements is crucial. In writing, today we read diving into how the rain can help us discover our writing voice and unlock our creativity. So grab a notebook and let's dive in. Ask questions about everything and anything that sparks your interest. Explore the power of metaphors, similes, and other literary devices. Read widely to expand your vocabulary and experiment with different writing styles. This love affair with language will infuse your writing with style and grace. Why is the sky blue? How does laughter affect the human body? What was life like 100 years ago? These questions don't have to remain unanswered. Immerse yourself in art, music, movies, history, science, nature, mythology, and folklore. How has rain impacted your creative process as a writer or artist? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please like this video and share it with others. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you for joining me on this journey of literary exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep writing and let your unique voice shine through. Attend concerts, visit museums, read poetry, watch documentaries. The more you expose yourself to diverse forms of art, the richer your creative palette becomes. Research them, discuss them with others, and use your findings to fuel your writing. This insatiable curiosity will keep your mind agile, ensuring a steady stream of ideas to explore. They might have written, "From a young age, I've loved the rain. Every raindrop is like music to my ears." While this statement is undoubtedly pleasant, it lacks the depth of emotion and personal context that make it uniquely mine. First, you need to explore the depths of your experiences, thoughts, and emotions. Mastering the rules of grammar, punctuation, and style is crucial for any aspiring writer. Once you have a solid grasp of these rules, don't hesitate to break them intentionally for creative effect. By embracing the power of observation, nurturing curiosity, cultivating a love for language, seeking inspiration from diverse sources, learning the rules, then breaking them, and writing regularly, you can unlock the unique narrative that lies within you. This knowledge will serve as the foundation for your unique voice, allowing you to bend the rules without breaking them. Observation is the cornerstone of any writer's journey. Pay attention to the world around you, noticing the intricate details that make up everyday life. Set aside time each day to write, even if it's just for a few minutes. Share your work with others, and be open to constructive criticism. This invaluable feedback will help you refine your style and approach. How does the sunlight filter through autumn leaves? What's the aroma of freshly brewed coffee on a chilly morning? What does your favorite sweater feel like against your skin? By storing these sensory experiences in your mind, you build a rich library of material to draw from when writing. These observations don't have to be grand, sweeping vistas. They can be the smallest, most intimate moments. Your keen observations will infuse your writing with freshness and originality. This journey of self-discovery will lay the foundation for your unique voice. Next, you must learn to express yourself authentically through your writing. Here are 6 ways to help you on your path to discovering your voice. It's a sentiment that could apply to many, but it doesn't reflect my specific journey or experiences. Similarly, imagine someone else writing, "I dreaded rainy days. The downpour mirrored the torrent of emotions within me." Again, a powerful statement, but one that doesn't resonate with my personal narrative. This illustrates the significance of our individual journeys in shaping our writing voices. My writer's journey began with a fascination for storytelling. It helps us move beyond generic statements and craft sentences that are authentically ours. I devoured books growing up, each one igniting my imagination. However, when it came to putting pen to paper, I felt lost. My father would occasionally lift me up to see outside, his calm presence soothing away my fear of the thunderclaps. Those moments sparked a lifelong love for rainy days. In fact, I've even considered writing a story inspired by those moments. While I might not live near him anymore, I still associate rainy days with his comforting aura. Similarly, I've come to appreciate how rain complements certain activities, making them all the more enjoyable. My stories stayed locked inside me, unheard. Despite this, I pursued college, convinced it would offer the key to unlocking my writing potential. But it wasn't until after graduation that I stumbled upon a transformative program called Writing with Purpose, led by author Karen Foster. This course became my guiding light, providing the structure and inspiration I needed to take my writing from daydreams to reality. Through daily prompts and Karen's insightful feedback, I learned to articulate my unique perspective, shaping it into compelling narratives. This course wasn't just about writing, it was about self-discovery. As my pieces evolved, so did I, finding my voice, building confidence, and embracing vulnerability on the page. If you're ready to embark on your own writing journey or enhance your existing practice, consider checking out the link below. You can also support my work. Thank you. One of my most vivid childhood memories is sitting by the window during a heavy rainstorm. So what's my point in sharing this personal connection to rain? Imagine, for instance, that someone else had written the opening paragraph of my story. Exploring our thoughts and feelings surrounding common elements like rain allows us to tap into a well of inspiration. The process of discovering your writing voice involves two essential steps: exploration and expression. Embrace the power of observation. Number 2, nurture curiosity. Curiosity is your passport to endless inspiration. Number 3, cultivate a love for language. The beauty of language lies in its infinite possibilities. Take delight in the nuances of words. Number 4, seek inspiration from diverse sources. Inspiration can strike from the most unexpected corners. 5, learn the rules, then break them. Number 6, write regularly and embrace feedback. The key to improvement is consistent practice. Discovering your writing voice is a profound journey of self-expression and creativity. Now I want to hear from you. What role does rain play in your life? Does it evoke a particular emotion or memory? We woke to a sky full of apologies. Morning did not arrive with sunlight. It came with a softer silence. The rain had lessened, fallen now in gentle threads that stitched silver into the mist. The world beyond the cottage seemed blurred, like a half-finished watercolor left in the hands of the clouds. Now vibrant wildflowers carpeted the lower slopes, nodding to butterflies and buzzing bees. The air grew warmer, sweeter, carrying the scent of ripening berries and distant campfires. This part of the world hummed with life, with people, with stories waiting to be discovered. Here, the path was clearer, easier to follow, marked sometimes by the remnants of a campfire, sometimes by the faint imprint of a boot. Once she even found a discarded book, its pages water-stained, but intact, offering her tales of daring nights and faraway lands. The journey took days, measured not just by sunrise and sunset, but by the unfolding of stories. Under the watchful gaze of the mountains, she met a wandering minstrel, his guitar strung with moonlight, who sang of ancient heroes and the sorrows of love. They shared bread and cheese under a canopy of stars, and he taught her a song about a girl who climbed a mountain and found her way back to herself. Further on, she encountered a hunter, weathered and sharp-eyed, who spoke little but offered her a roasted chestnut, its skin like burnished copper, and showed her the tracks of a lone wolf slinking through the undergrowth. He told her stories of courage and cunning, of surviving the harshest winters and outsmarting forest predators. From him, she learned the silent language of the woods, how to read the whispers of the wind through the leaves, the secrets hidden in a bird's cry or the tilt of a tree. And then she met a woodcutter, his beard flecked with sawdust, who invited her to share a simple supper of stew and vegetables. His hands, gnarled like the roots of an old oak, spoke of a lifetime spent in the service of nature. He told her myths about dryads and tree spirits, about the ancient wisdom held within the heartwood of each tree. With him, she planted a small sapling, a tiny promise of green amidst the tapestry of brown, a symbol of resilience and growth. And as the days passed, the girl collected stories like precious gems, tucking them away in the deepest chambers of her heart. The mountains had given her much, had shown her the depths of her own resilience and the boundless kindness of strangers. The path ahead remained uncertain, but she was no longer afraid. The girl who had set out on a solitary journey had become a traveler, embraced by the rhythms of the earth, enriched by the generosity of those she had met along the way. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, she knew that while the mountains would always stand as silent witnesses to her transformation, the true magic lay in the echoes of laughter, the warmth of shared meals, and the comforting weight of a well-worn storybook tucked under her arm. The mountains had a way of stripping away pretense, revealing what truly mattered: connection, community, and the enduring power of a well-told tale. A thin trail of smoke curled from the chimney, mingling with the fog, as if the house itself was sighing into the day. Inside, the fire had died to embers. The girl stirred beneath layers of old quilts, her breath slow and even. The old man was already awake, standing by the window, wrapped in a woven cloak. In his hand, he held a tin cup of tea, steam rising and vanishing into the morning hush. He didn't turn when she sat up, only spoke in a voice calm as the mountains themselves. Rain's let up a little. The forest will be walking now. She rubbed her eyes, blinking at the phrase. Walking. He smiled faintly. That's what the elders used to say. After a deep rain, the forest stirs differently, as if it stretches its limbs. Roots shift. Birds return with new songs. The world begins again. She slipped her feet into worn slippers and approached the window beside him. The view outside was a soft ghost of greens and grays. Pines stood still as statues. The path she had stumbled down yesterday was almost invisible now. He handed her a cup. It was warm, earthy, with hints of pine and something like citrus. What's in it? She asked. Leaves that. Remember storms? He said. Then, after a pause and a little dried lemon peel, they stood together in silence. She sipped, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. Do you think I should go back today? She asked, not looking at him. Do you think you're ready to return? He replied, still watching the rain. She didn't answer. Not yet. Something inside her was still untying knots, something old and quiet. Later, they stepped outside. The world smelled of moss and smoke, petrichor and pine needles. The earth was damp beneath their boots, and everything glistened as if newly born. The forest around them felt alive, not watching, but aware. He led her down a path. There was not really a path, just an impression through the trees, worn into memory by time rather than feet. They walked slowly, their steps muffled by wet leaves and soft mud. The girl kept glancing at the trees. It feels different now. He nodded. The rain washes away more than dust. It makes space, sometimes for answers, sometimes for better questions. They came to a clearing. A flat stone sat at its center, carved with faded markings, half covered in lichen and moss. Is this a shrine? She asked. In a way, he said, a place to remember the ones who walked before us, heard us, wanderers, silent listeners. She stepped forward, running her fingers across the stone's damp surface. The markings were strange, but gentle, like flowing water etched into rock. I think I dreamed about this place once, she whispered. He didn't look surprised. The mountains, remember their visitors. Sometimes they call us back in dreams. Before we ever arrive, they sat on a fallen log. Rain pattered lightly on leaves above them, forming a canopy of sound. Birds had returned, tiny streaks of movement and song, darting through the branches. The girl turned to him. My name's Anya, she said, finally. He gave a small bow of his head. And I'm called Dren. Why do you live here, all alone? I'm not alone, he said, gesturing to the forest. And I live here because I once forgot how to hear myself. The world below was too loud, too fast. Up here, even silence speaks. Anya looked down at her hands. I think that's why I came to. I was tired of all the noise, everyone talking, but no one really listening, not even me. He gave her a long, thoughtful look. You heard the rain? He said. That's how you found this place. She smiled faintly. Maybe it found me. The walk back was slow, deliberate. She was starting to notice things. Now tiny mushrooms growing in mossy crevices, droplets clinging to spider webs, like beads of crystal. A red feather caught in the crook of a branch. Each step felt like both a farewell and a beginning. At the cottage, she packed what little she had: a water flask, a small journal, her damp cloak, now dried and smelling faintly of wood smoke. Dren handed her a small folded paper. Your path back is there, he said. It'll look different than before, because you are different now. She opened the paper. A hand-drawn map, elegant in its simplicity, marked with symbols she didn't fully recognize, but somehow understood. She looked up at him, her eyes a mix of gratitude and ache. Will I see you again? Dren smiled, slow and certain. Perhaps, if the rain calls you. She turned to leave, stepping back into the shifting mist. She didn't look back until the trees had nearly swallowed the cottage. It stood there still, quiet, ageless, waiting not just for her return, but for all those who might one day need to hear the mountains hush. And as she walked down the fading path, the rain began again, soft and steady, a voice in the silence, a guide between heartbeats. As the girl descended into the valley, the landscape shifted. Gone were the towering pines and the muted greens. The rain had followed her, not with the weight of a storm, but with a softness that seemed almost intentional, as if it, too, wanted to walk beside her. As Anya descended the winding trail, her boots meeting stone, root, and mud, she no longer feared getting lost. Anya came upon a lone tree in the middle of a field of stone. A lightning strike had broken it long ago, top half blackened and hollow-but. Green shoots still emerged from one side. In the center, shrouded in fog, was a lake like glass, but they give echoes. She closed her eyes. The rain stopped. The wind slowed. The silence listened, and in that stillness, she remembered her mother's hands pulling her cloak tight on the morning she left, not with the weight of a storm, but with a softness that seemed almost intentional, as if it, too, wanted to walk beside her. As Anya descended the winding trail, her boots meeting stone, root, and mud, she no longer feared getting lost. A lightning strike had broken it long, a goot's top half, blackened and hollow-but. Green shoots still emerged from one side. Life, stubborn and graceful. She sat beneath it and opened her journal. In the center, shrouded in fog, was a lake like glass, silent, dark, still. It did not ripple. It did not glisten. It simply was. But they give echoes. She closed her eyes. The rain stopped. The wind slowed. The silence listened. And in that stillness, she remembered her mother's hands pulling her cloak tight on the morning she left. Her brother's last quiet words before he disappeared into a city of noise. The ache of wanting to be understood. The fear that maybe no one ever would. But also, the firelight in the cottage. The taste of tea made from storm-kissed leaves. The hush of pine needles as they bowed under rain. The voice that said, if you listen not just hear ULL. Find the answers were already there. Tears came, not from sorrow, but from softness, from recognition, from returning. She sat on the edge of the stone terrace, breath caught in her chest. It was beautiful in the way silence is, the way memory is. And she understood, without needing to explain it to herself, that this was not a place found on any map. This was the place inside her that had been waiting. Pages were wrinkled from damp, but she didn't mind. Her pencil moved slowly, no longer racing to capture meaning, but letting meaning arrive on its own. A group of children laughed as they ran barefoot through puddles. Anya stood at the edge of it all, her cloak damp, her boots muddy, her journal pressed to her chest like something sacred. A woman approached her, eyes kind, hands weathered from baking and mending. "Did you come from the high path?" the woman asked, surprised. "No one's walked that trail since the old map-maker vanished." Anya smiled gently. "He's not gone," she said. "He's just listening." The woman blinked, unsure, but nodded. "Well, if you're hungry, there's soup on the stove, and stories to share, if you've gathered any." Anya stepped into the warmth of the village. She didn't need to tell everything. Not yet, but she would write. She would remember. She would let the rain keep speaking through her hands and voice and footsteps. And one day when someone else came searching through storm and silence, she would be the one waiting at the door, offering tea and a place to rest. I thought I was looking for a way out, but maybe I was looking for a way in. The rain didn't wash me away. It taught me to stay. The words weren't perfect, but they were true. The forest, once a shadowy stranger, now felt like a companion whispering secrets just beyond the reach of words. Sunlight, tentative but golden, spilled across the moss-covered rocks. The mountains unfolded around her like old stories no longer blurred by fog, but rising with purpose, proud and still. She spotted a stone marker near the trail, a simple carved spiral etched into its face. She remembered it from Dren's map. It meant turn here, but before she followed it, something pulled her attention, a low rumble, not thunder, the kind of murmur that comes from deep roots. Shifting, she followed the noise off trail, just a few careful steps through damp undergrowth. There, half buried in ivy and mist, was a stone stairway. Old, cracked, forgotten by most eyes, but not hers. She hesitated, heart quiet but alert. Then she stepped down. Dren's map was folded into a cloak pocket, but she hadn't looked at it in an hour. She didn't need to. There was something new growing inside her, something like stillness, something like instinct, the way a deer knows where water sleeps, the way a cloud knows where to drift. Her brother's last quiet words before he disappeared into a city of noise. She knelt and touched it, letting the chill move through her fingers. Reflections wavered. Hers, yes, but also fragments of sky, moss, and the uncertain light that lives in the space between rain clouds and earth. She whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure to whom. Perhaps to the mountains, perhaps to the silence, the ache of wanting to be understood, the fear that maybe no one ever would, but also the firelight in the cottage, the taste of tea made from storm-kissed leaves, the hush of pine needles as they bowed under rain. The voice that said, "If you listen not just how you will, find the answers were already there." Tears came, not from sorrow, but from softness, from recognition, from returning, silent, dark. Still, it did not ripple, it did not glisten. It simply was. A group of children laughed as they ran barefoot through puddles. Anya stood at the edge of it all, her cloak damp, her boots muddy, her journal pressed to her chest like something sacred. A woman approached her, eyes kind, hands weathered from baking and mending. "Did you come from the high path?" the woman asked, surprised. "No one's walked that trail since the old mapmaker vanished." Anya smiled gently. "He's not gone," she said. "He's just listening." The woman blinked, unsure, but no. "Well, if you're hungry, there's soup on the stove and stories to share, if you've gathered any." Anya stepped into the warmth of the village. She didn't need to tell everything. Not yet. But she would write, she would remember, she would let the rain keep speaking through her hands and voice and footsteps. And one day when someone else came searching through storm and silence, she would be the one waiting at the door, offering tea and a place to rest. She sat on the edge of the stone terrace, breath caught in her chest. It was beautiful in a way silence is, the way memory is, and she understood, without needing to explain it to herself, that this was not a place found on any map. This was the place inside her that had been waiting, life, stubborn and graceful. She sat beneath it and opened her journal. Pages were wrinkled from damp, but she didn't mind. Her pencil moved slowly, no longer racing to capture meaning, but letting meaning arrive on its own. "I thought I was looking for a way out, but maybe I was looking for a way in. The rain didn't wash me away. It taught me to stay. The words weren't perfect, but they were true. The forest, once a shadowy stranger, now felt like a companion, whispering secrets, just beyond the reach of words. Drin's map was folded into a cloak pocket, but she hadn't looked at it in an hour. She didn't need to. There was something new growing inside her, something like stillness, something like instinct. The way a deer knows where water sleeps, the way a cloud knows where to drift. She paused by a glistening stream, the water singing over rocks, carrying broken pine needles and fallen leaves. She knelt and touched it, letting the chill move through her fingers. Reflections wavered. Hers, yes, but also fragments of scar, moss, and the uncertain light that lives in the space between rain clouds and earth. She whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure to whom. Perhaps to the mountains, perhaps to the silence. Hours passed. The mist thinned. By late afternoon, the clouds began to part in torn pieces of blue. Sunlight, tentative but golden, spilled across the moss-covered rocks. The mountains unfolded around her, like old stories no longer blurred by fog, but rising with purpose, proud and still. She spotted a stone marker near the trail, a simple carved spiral etched into its face. She remembered it from Dren's map. It meant, "Turn here." But before she followed it, something pulled her attention, a low rumble. Not thunder, but earth sound, the kind of murmur that comes from deep roots shifting. She followed the noise off trail. Just a few careful steps through damp undergrowth. There, half buried in ivy and mist, was a stone stairway. Old, cracked, forgotten by most eyes, but not hers. She hesitated, heart quiet but alert. Then she stepped down. The staircase led to a terrace of rock overlooking a vast basin of trees. She thought of Dren's words. The mountains don't give answers. That evening, she found her way to a small village, nestled at the base of the Cloud Mountains. Smoke curled from chimneys, windows glowed with golden light. The rain had followed her. She paused by a glistening stream, the water singing over rocks, carrying broken pine needles and fallen leaves. Hours passed. The mist thinned. Anya came upon a lone tree in the middle of a field of stone. By late afternoon, the clouds began to part in torn pieces of blue. The staircase led to a terrace of rock overlooking a vast basin of trees. She thought of Dren's words. The mountains don't give answers. That evening, she found her way to a small village, nestled at the base of the Cloud Mountains. Smoke curled from chimneys. Windows glowed with golden light. Now, do you remember the last time you were completely absorbed in something to the point where everything else faded away? I am the host. This is a podcast, and this is Between the Hills, episode 27 of our 3rd season. Our theme this month is journeys, and we're continuing our exploration of this idea through myth, story, and personal reflection. I have notebooks full of phrases and passages that have landed in my lap and stuck there because they resonated with something inside of me. It's about a girl who went far up into the mountains, and what happened to her there. The rain had ended, but Anya carried it with her, the kind that didn't rush you indoors but asked you to pause. She gathered the children and taught them how to sit still. I do hope you enjoyed hearing it. I thought it was such a lovely piece of writing, and I was really struck by it when I read it. I used to struggle with this a lot. Getting outside and committing to a routine was hard, but it is something that I've really worked on and something that I've actually gotten pretty into lately. So if you're struggling with this too, I recommend downloading an app. I've been using one for a couple of months now, and it has seriously been such a game changer for me. It got me thinking about how so many of our greatest life lessons are often learned through nature or by spending time outdoors. As I've mentioned before, I'm a big believer in the healing power of nature. So this story really resonated with me, not as punishment, not as silence, but as a game. "Close your eyes," she said. "Tell me what you hear, not what you see." They laughed at first, fidgeted, yawned. "I'll see you next time." But slowly, it became a ritual, a kind of morning rain of the mind. One boy raised his hand after a long pause. "I heard a drip land on a leaf, and another catch it," the girl whispered. "I heard the wind say almost." And another child quietest of all, opened his eyes and said, "I heard my heart." In the weeks that followed, Anya began placing empty bowls outside the cottages when it rained. Ceramic bowls, clay cups, sometimes even hollowed stones. No words, just vessels. When people asked, she said, to remember that even the sky has something to give. Over time, the village changed not in loud ways, but in tone, in rhythm. In the way the blacksmith paused his hammering when thunder rolled. In the way the mayor started walking instead of riding. In the way people no longer rushed to fill silence. The village began to listen. On the night of the autumn moon, a traveler arrived lost, soaked, and silent at the edge of the square. Anya met him with a cup of tea and a towel. "You've come a long way," she said, handing him both. He looked at her with confusion. "How did you know?" She smiled, and the wind rustled the lanterns. "Because the rain brought you." And as he sipped the tea, warming his hands, she opened a journal and offered him the blank page. Not to write on, just to rest his eyes. To remind him that quiet is not empty. That silence is not absence. That in the cloud mountains, the rain is never just weather. It is the voice of something older. And if you listen long enough, you become part of it. To listen, to feel the ground again. That morning, Anya found a letter. It was wrapped in birch bark, sealed with a simple knot of red twine, and leaning against her door. No name, no mark, only the faint scent of pine and fire smoke. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside, a map not of trails, but of moments. Each bend was marked, not with symbols, but with verses. Here, where you first asked why. Here, where the wind gave its answer. Here, where silence made space for your name. And here, where you will choose to stay. And beneath it all, a note in Dren's uneven hand. You carried the rain well. Now, carry the listening. When the forest asks, you will know what to say. That evening, Anya climbed a bell tower, at the edge of the village, the oldest part of town, where rusted tools and forgotten wishes gathered under ivy. From there, she could see it all. The glow of lanterns in windows, the blur of mist curling between houses, the children chasing puddles, the slow breath of the mountains above. She took out her journal, and for the first time, she didn't write about the rain. She wrote to it. "Rain, you were never just falling water. You were the voice I needed to hear when the world grew too loud to bear my own. Thank you for carrying me home, even when I didn't know where that was, not in her boots or cloak, not in the weight of soaked fabric or the memory of mist, but in her bones, where the hush of the mountains had etched itself quietly into her being." She walked differently now, not faster, but with a kind of stillness that lingered around her, like the scent of moss after a storm. In the village below the cloud mountains, people noticed, not all at once, but in glances, in small silences, in the way she paused before speaking, as if listening to something beyond words. The baker's boy, who used to shout at birds in the morning, found himself quiet when she passed by, unsure why his voice felt too loud. The old herbalist, who kept to herself in a crooked cottage near the river, offered Anya a jar of dried violets, without a word, just a nod, as though she understood that this girl had seen something. Children followed her, not in play, but in curiosity. They brought her pebbles, shaped like hearts, feathers damp from creek, and once a bird's nest blown from a tree, empty but whole. "Why are you always listening?" one child asked. Anya smiled gently. "Because the world whispers before it sings." She stayed in a room above the potter's shop, her window overlooking the eastern ridge of the cloud mountains. Every morning she would open it wide, no matter the weather, and breathe in the dawn like a quiet prayer. She began to write, more filling page after page, with words that didn't try to explain, but to reflect. Her poems were left in strange places, folded into the cracks of stone walls, tucked beneath fresh loaves at the bakery, and once tied with string to the handlebars of a rusting bicycle left near the well. One read, "Somewhere beyond the fog, a quiet shape is waiting, not to be found, but to be remembered." Today's episode comes from one such passage. It has to do with a certain feeling that I get every time I reach a mountain pass, a sort of moment of culmination and release. I call it letting go of elevation. It doesn't have anything to do with altitude necessarily, though I suppose it's related. I can experience it in the Catskills just as much as the Swiss Alps. The best way I can describe it is the feeling of making it to the end of a very long exhale. It's a peace that permeates everything, a quietude that settles deep in the bones and makes me want to walk softly, talk quietly, make small sounds that don't break the hush. It's an awareness of all that lies behind me and all that stretches ahead. It's the culmination of a journey, yes, but also the beginning of another. If you'd like to join us each month for these literary explorations, you can find us on a platform. If you've been listening for a while, you may remember that I once described myself as a collector of words and stories. I bring this up today because I think it relates to the story I want to share with you. One misty afternoon, weeks after her arrival, the village awoke to rain again. Soft, familiar. The next day, she began something new. This piece was originally written for a magazine, so I'll link to that version below. Something that I've been doing lately to incorporate more of this into my life is getting outside for some form of exercise most days. And that's it for our episode today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our supporters who make these episodes possible. The forest had begun to remember her, not in ways she could see but in the hush that followed her footsteps, in the way the crows paused on branches just a second longer, in the way the wind curled around her as if it knew her name. It had been many moons since Anya came down from the high path of the Cloud Mountains. The village had changed. She had changed. And yet, somewhere in the soft turning of days, she felt it again, that quiet thrum in her chest. She was humming, he whispered to his mother. The mother asked. Even the occasional curious hermit found their way up the winding path. Some stayed but a moment, slipping out again into the world. Others lingered weeks or months, emerging slow and steady as sap. And some never left, finding in that one phrase, "You're not lost, you're listening," the home they had been seeking all along. Anya watched them all go, each leaving a piece of themselves behind, each taking a piece of the house with them. She felt no sadness. Instead, she remembered Dren's words, "Where silence made space for your name." She had been the space, and now she was the name. Still, she understood the pull of the world, the need to return to paths well trodden. So when she saw a flicker of gold at the edge of her vision, she did not resist. She stepped outside, letting the mountains fall away behind her. As she walked, the trees fell silent, not because they had stopped listening, but because they were sending their silence ahead of her, making space for the returning sun. The sky cleared and the wind quickened, tugging at her sleeve, pulling her onward, and in the distance, the faintest hint of a melody. Like a remembered dream, she started toward it, a smile touching her lips. The melody grew stronger now. Clear as a bird in flight, she broke into a run, laughing, as if she had been summoned, and she was going home. "The mountain," he said. Anya overheard, smiling softly. Children often heard what adults had forgotten. That evening, she stepped outside with her journal. The pages were full, her hands. She sat on the porch, watching fog move between trees like drifting memory. She felt it again, low, steady, like a heartbeat hidden beneath the moss. Something calling, not loud, not urgent, but true. The next morning, she left before dawn. She packed little, a flask of tea, dried bread, her journal, and a folded page torn from Dren's old letter, the one marked, "Here where silence made space for your name." She left a note on the porch. "If you come looking, the house will wait for you. If you listen, the path will appear. And if you wonder where I've gone where the clouds keep their questions." She walked alone, boots soft on the dew-soaked earth, past pines and sleeping ferns, past the edge of what was known. The forest did not resist her. It welcomed her back. The trail was older now, overgrown in places. Stones wore more moss. Branches had woven themselves into strange archways. Still, she moved eyes. Her heart was not heavy. It was open. The rain returned just as she reached the ridge of light drizzle. Soft and familiar. She paused beneath a tree, letting it soak her hair, her sleeves, and then ahead in the mist, a light, faint, golden, moving. She followed. It led her to a clearing she had not seen before. In the center stood a small structure, neither cottage nor temple. It was built from stone and weathered wood, its roof grown over with vines and lichen. A single door stood slightly ajar, and above it, carved into the beam, "Only those who carry silence may enter." She stepped through. Inside, a circular room, empty except for a pool in the center, smooth as glass, surrounded by 7 stones. Each stone bore a word. Listen, remember, forgive, unlearn, offer, wait, begin. She knelt by the pool. Rain fell through a skylight above, landing gently on the surface, forming rings that drifted outward one within the next. She saw herself in those ripples. But not just now. She saw the girl who had fled the noise, the girl who climbed into fog, the girl who stood by Dren's fire, the woman who taught others to listen, the one who had always been all of them. Anya closed her eyes, and she listened. Not for words, not for answers, but for the echo that remains when everything else has fallen quiet. She stayed there for a long time, or maybe no time at all. When she finally rose, a folded paper lay beside the pool, unmarked, dry, though the air was damp. She opened it. "You've become the rain. Now become the cloud. Carry not just quiet, but the space for others to bloom within it." At the bottom, the familiar spiral, Dren's hand, but also her own. When Anya returned to the House of Quiet Doors, something had shifted, not in the rooms, which remained simple and silent, not in the village, which still listened like trees, but in her. She no longer felt like someone who had found something. She felt like someone becoming the path. That night, she opened her journal to a new page. At the top, she wrote, "A rainy evening in the Cloud Mountains, Part 1. And below that, in ink shaped like mist, every door is a sky, waiting to open. Every silence is a bridge. And somewhere deep in the mountains, a cottage waits beside a fire, still listening." That call, it didn't feel like restlessness. It felt like an invitation. Anya had built the house herself, not alone villagers, had come with tools and stories, and bread warm from the oven butt. It was her vision, a simple structure tucked at the edge of the woods, where moss grew thick on stones, and the mist came easily with morning. It had no signs, no bells, just a wooden plaque carved with a spiral and a single word. Listen. They called it the House of Quiet Doors because it had no front, only paths, 5 of them each one, leading to a small wooden door painted in colors soft as fog. The blue door, for those who had forgotten how to feel. The green door, for those who carried too many voices inside. The white door, for grief. The red door, for those who feared they might break. And the black door, for those who didn't yet know why they came. There were no locks, no instructions, only silence, and a choice to step through. Inside each room, a cushion, a single candle, a bowl of water to catch the sky, and sometimes in certain days when the wind was read a note from Anya tucked beneath a stone. "You're not lost. You're listening." One day, as mist curled low across the grass, a child named Lyre returned from the house, with wide eyes. As the years turned, the House of Quiet Doors became a place of passing. Travelers seeking rest, villagers carrying burdens. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is another one of our collaborative videos, so go show your support over there. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this video. It was on the edge of the season's first frost that he came. The trees had begun their soft turning, their leaves whispering in ochre and rust. The sky wore its gray, like a shawl pulled tightly around its shoulders. Rain hadn't fallen in days, yet the earth still smelled of it as if the land itself remembered. Anya was sweeping the porch of the House of Quiet Doors when she saw him, a traveler, but not like the others. He moved slowly, deliberately, as though walking not to arrive but to listen. His cloak was pale as moonlight. His boots trailed silver threads, like frost that hadn't melted, and in his hand, a scroll wrapped in ribbon the color of dawn. He said nothing at first, just stood in the rain-washed light, watching, listening. Finally, Anya spoke. "Are you here to rest?" The man smiled faintly. "I'm here to return something." They sat by the window where the fog moved like breath across the hills. She served him tea brewed from wild lavender and soft pine needles. He set the scroll on the table between them. It pulsed faintly, like it remembered being alive. Anya didn't touch it. Instead, she asked, "Where did you find it?" "In the Cave of Echoes," he said, "high above the third ridge, where silence waits to become song." She recognized the place Drin had once spoken of. It a hollow space in the mountain, a place where time folded into stone. The traveler continued, "There's a story inside, one that began with you, and one that will end with you, unless you choose otherwise." She unwrapped the scroll. The map was like nothing she had seen before. It wasn't of places, but sounds. Each curve and line was a note, each symbol a breath, each path drawn with such care. It felt like music sleeping on paper. At the center, a mountain peak shaped like a question mark, encircled by clouds that looked like listening ears, and near the bottom, etched in small silver letters, the silence that taught the sky to sing. For Anya felt the echo rise in her chest. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. That night, she stood beneath the stars. No candle, no cloak, just her and the mountain wind. The scroll rested beside her heart, and though no voice spoke, she knew the choice was asking itself again. Stay or return, not to what she was, but to what was still becoming. Inside the house, the children had left notes beneath the doors. Small messages, little poems. One read, "Today the wind told me, I'm not alone." Another, "I think rain is a kind of remembering." She smiled. The house had grown its own voice. It would keep listening even if she stepped away. By dawn, she had packed a simple satchel, her journal, a new flask of tea. At the foot of each door, she left a feather, not as a farewell, as a reminder that silence can fly, that stillness can carry, that every whisper becomes a wing if you let it. She tied the scroll across her back, the silver thread glinting softly in the pale sun. Before she left, she wrote on the porch beam, "This house was never mine. It was the mountain's breath, made into shelter. If you enter, listen. If you leave, carry what cannot be heard." The trail this time was unfamiliar, not higher, but deeper, through thickets, where the branches arched like cathedral ceilings, across streams that whispered songs in languages older than names, past stones etched not by hand, but by memory. The scroll pulsed gently with each step, not guiding, just reminding that she was not returning to the mountain. She was returning to the song. At last, she reached it, a clearing veiled in mist, where the sky opened its arms, and the ground felt like breath beneath her feet. At the center stood a circle of obsidian, pillars each humming faintly, not with sound, but with presence. In the middle, a single stone seat, and above it, suspended as if by air alone, hung a chime made of 7 bones, pale and light as snow. As she stepped into the circle, the wind stirred. The chime rang, once, twice, then silence, not emptiness, invitation. Anya sat, and as she did, the scroll unraveled itself in her lap. The lines shimmered, rising into the air, floating, spiraling, surrounding her. Notes, rhythms, breaths. The map began to sing, and she sang back, not with words, not with melody, but with memory. The mountain listened. The sky listened. And for the first time in what felt like lifetimes, Anya heard herself whole, unfractured. She became the silence that taught the sky to sing. And in that soundless song, she understood. She was not the girl who ran from noise, nor the woman who taught others to be still. She was the space between, the bridge, the echo, and the first drop. When the sky finally opened, it did not weep. It welcomed. The clouds curled low, embracing the peak, and the chime sang once more, this time in harmony. Anya rose. She no longer needed the scroll. The song was in her now, and wherever she would walk next, it would follow, not as burden, not as calling, but as companionship. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please go show our collaborative video some love. Thank you so much. If you're here, it means you have a story. Welcome to our channel. The air was heavy that night, the kind that bleeds purple into the horizon. Lightning flashed, not as a display, but as an omen. Rain poured, not as a shower, but as in the distance. Thunder rumbled, low and deep, like the voice of the mountain itself, lamenting. At the edge of the village, nestled beneath the shadow of its stony breast, sat the house of quiet doors. 5 doors, 5 colors, 5 chances. For the lost, the lonely, and the longing. It was here, the place where silence wasn't empty, but brimming with stories unspoken. Here, the rain fell heaviest, but also the softest. Beneath the canopy of the ancient mountain lived Anya, hunter, healer, and seeker of the unknown. Tonight, she walked the path to the house with purpose in her step. Her destination, the green door. The door of healing. She ran a hand along its surface, smooth and yielding, like the skin of a leaf. This was no ordinary house, and no ordinary evening. She could feel it in her bones. The same bones that trembled with the memory of a lullaby, sung by a mother whose name she couldn't recall. A melody that echoed in the rustle of the leaves, in the gush of the waterfall, in the pulse of the mountain itself. The rhythm of a life lived, a life lost, and a life she might yet find. Tonight, she would ask the mountain its oldest question. What is remembrance? If no one hears it, if no one speaks it, if no one remembers. 12 steps she climbed, 12 breaths she took, each one echoing in the vastness of the night. Finally, she pushed open the door. Inside, not darkness, but deepening twilight. Not emptiness, but expectant, quiet. She stood in the threshold, feeling more exposed than she ever had. Barefoot on worn wood, her arms crossed over her chest. She waited. The clock chimed 12 times, not loudly, but resonantly, and then she heard it, a sigh. Slow and deep, like the exhalation of the world itself. From the corner, a figure emerged, tall and cloaked in shadows. They moved with a grace that seemed timeless, their face hidden, their presence palpable. Like the mountain itself, the voice began, its tone ancient, its words measured. You seek remembrance, little hunter. You wish to know what is left when everything is forgotten. Come, I will show you. Deeper into the house, they went, past candelabras that held not flames, but memories, past tapestries that wove not stories, but silences, until they reached a room unlike any other. In the center, a single chair. In front of it, a pool of inky black. The figure gestured for her to sit, and as she did, the world around her, all she could see, all she could feel, was the weight of untold stories pressing against her eyelids. She wanted to speak, to scream, to break the suffocating quiet, but no sound escaped her lips. She struggled to breathe, to move, to be, yet in that very stillness, something shifted within her. The walls of the room seemed to sigh, the ceiling to weep, and from the depths of her being, she felt something stir. Not an answer, not a solution, but a recognition, deep and primal, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Then, as abruptly as it began, it ended. The figure reappeared, their form shifting and reforming like mist. You have glimpsed the first truth, child of light. To remember is to hold space for the forgotten, to honor the echoes in the halls of our hearts. But tonight, I sense another question stirring within you, something you hesitate to voice, something you fear to remember. The voice fell silent, expectant, giving her the space she needed to find her own. Slowly, carefully, she began to speak. Who am I? 12 steps she climbed. 12 breaths she took, back to the green door, where the scent of moss and earth still lingered, where the touch of the wood was soft and yielding. Now, looking at it, she saw not just a door, but a promise. The figure stood beside her, their presence a comforting weight. Child of light, you are the seeker and the soul, the questioner and the questioned. You are the echo in the mountain's heart, and the melody in the waterfall's song. Your past is woven into the fabric of this world, and your future is written in the whispers of the wind. Who are you? You are everything you seek and more, for you carry the spirit of the ancients, the courage of the wild, and the wisdom of the stars themselves. With these words, the figure vanished. The door shimmered, no longer green, but a kaleidoscope of colors. The green door had become the old door, welcoming, encompassing, reminding her she was never truly lost. With newfound clarity, Anya descended the stairs. In the distance, the mountain seemed to rumble in approval. Up ahead, the path forked. One way led back to the village, the other deeper into the forest. She hesitated. She could go back, pretend the night had been a dream, bury the questions in the familiar routines of her days. But something held her, something that resonated with the ancient wisdom in her bones. She chose the path less traveled. She kept walking, deeper into the woods, past trees that whispered secrets, over streams that murmured tales, until she found herself in a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center, a single chair, crafted from weathered wood, sturdy and enduring, just like the mountain that cradled it. She knew instinctively this was the place where she was meant to be. Without a sound, she sat down. The chair seemed to sigh beneath her weight, and as she waited, she understood. Waiting wasn't passive. It was a form of courage, a testament to the strength she possessed. She closed her eyes, embracing the coolness of the night, the dampness of the earth, the vastness of the sky above. She breathed in the scent of pine and wet leaves, of petrichor and distant rain. And in that moment, something shifted. Not an answer, not a revelation, but a homecoming. She had come full circle, not because she had all the answers, but because she had asked the right questions. Her journey had just begun, and as the moon climbed higher in the sky, she knew she wasn't alone. She was connected to the mountain, to the forest, to the whispers of the wind, to the stories held in the rings of ancient trees, to the echoes in the halls of her ancestors, to the dreams of her future self, and most importantly, to the rhythm of her own beating heart. With renewed purpose, she rose from the chair, ready to face whatever came next. For she had tasted the power of stillness. She had heard the wisdom in the silence, and she carried the strength of the mountain within her own 2 hands. The rain had stopped. The clouds had parted, and the first rays of sunlight peeked through the trees. It was a new day, a fresh start, a chance to weave her story into the tapestry of the world. Thread by mindful thread, she walked back to the village, not as the same person who had set out the night before, but as someone who had danced with the spirits of the mountains, conversed with the wisdom of the woods, and sat with the echoes of her own soul. The village seemed to hum with life, renewed. The faces of her neighbors, though weathered by time and hardship, now held a new light. The babble of the brook, the laughter of children, the smell of baking bread, all seemed to resonate with a deeper harmony. She was home, not just in body, but in spirit. She had found her place in the grand symphony of existence, and she carried the melody in her heart. Anya ran a hand over the cool stone of her latest creation. This door was shaped like a crescent moon, its surface a mirror, reflecting the stormy sky above. Barefoot steps on the moss path, leading to the clearing. The girl's initial clumsiness slowly yielded to confidence. "I'll see you tomorrow," she asked over her shoulder. She thought about the 2 new doors in the clearing, how they fit so perfectly with the others. She had built them both, yet neither was exactly what she intended. The wind sighed through the trees, rustling the leaves into hushed whispers. Sunlight streamed through the branches, dappling the ground in shifting patterns of gold. Birdsong drifted through the air, sweet and serene. In this tranquil setting, Anya and the robed man sat before the newly opened moon door. Between them, nestled in the soft earth, was a collection of smooth, polished stones, each bearing silent witness to countless stories, countless tears. The man, whose name Anya learned was Ronan, had been traveling for months. He'd sought solace in motion, hoping that somewhere along the road he'd find an answer, a solution, a way to stop the relentless ache in his chest. But the road had offered no respite, only echoes of his own despair, and so he'd stumbled upon a clearing, drawn by an unseen force, guided by a faint melody that promised rest. They had been born from loss, from the kind of pain that threatened to swallow whole. Not an answer, not a solution, but an understanding. The woods had spoken to her for years, guiding her to build doors that whispered of solace and sanctuary. Yet she'd never fully listened to their message. She'd built the doors for others, but hadn't dared to open any herself. In Ronan, she saw a chance to bridge that divide, to walk the path she'd been guiding others on for so long. She didn't know what lay beyond the moon door, but she knew it was time to find out. Hand resting on the cool stone, she closed her eyes, letting the silence of the forest wash over her. The air thrummed with life, with stories, with secrets, and as she listened, she heard not just the murmur of the trees, but the echo of her own heart. The ache in Ronan's chest mirrored the hollowness in her soul, the weariness in his eyes, the reflection of her own. In that moment she understood that the doors weren't just about escape or hiding. They were about facing the darkness, embracing the silence, finding the courage to keep going when the night was too dark and the path too unclear. And while she understood that kind of pain, she couldn't say she'd ever experienced it herself. Loss was a guest that had visited her doorstep before, but she'd always let it pass. She'd buried her pain deep, swept it under the rug, pretended it wasn't there. That's why she built doors, to show others there was somewhere to put their pain, that it didn't have to live inside them. What she hadn't realized was that in doing so, she'd also created a safe haven for herself. In showing others how to face their fears and find peace, she'd learned how to face hers and find her own elusive peace. But some wounds run deeper than others, and some scars show in places you'd never expect. Always, Anya replied, watching her go. Mara had come alone, but she wouldn't stay alone for long. As she stood there watching, stunned, a familiar sound cut through the storm. Footsteps on the moss path. Slowly, hesitantly, a figure emerged from the trees, tall, cloaked in gray, his face obscured by the hood of his robe. He looked like a storm cloud made flesh, carrying darkness in his wake. But as he drew closer, Anya saw something else, a flicker of vulnerability in his stance, a tremor in his hands. He raised his head, and she saw the pain etched into every line of his face, the weariness in his eyes. The moment stretched, pregnant with unspoken words and unshed tears. Finally, he spoke. His voice was rough, unused. "I heard you might have a door. For me," she nodded, feeling tears prickle in her own eyes. "Yes, I think I do. Which one calls to you?" He scanned the doors, searching. Then he stepped toward the moon door, the one that had waited patiently for so long. He laid a hand on its cool surface, closed his eyes and whispered, "Is this one awake?" Soon, a young man would arrive seeking the same solace she had. And though he, too, would come alone, he wouldn't stay that way for long. He would carry his pain in a different way, but the same heavy silence. He would seek the comfort of solitude, but find connection instead. He and Mara would share their stories and their grief, finding strength in each other's company and the quiet validation of shared experience. Their love would grow slowly, tentatively, like a sapling reaching for the light. And when it bloomed, it would fill the clearing with a new kind of music, the kind that only two souls who had learned to listen to the silence could make. By the time the sun dipped below the tree line, she had chosen a tall, sturdy oak, and gathered the tools necessary to shape the door. "Thank you," she said quietly, running a hand over the rough planks. "Me, thank you," Anya replied. As she turned to go, the girl called out, "Wait, will you help me finish it?" Anya smiled. Of course. She spent the next 2 days working alongside the girl, now named Mara, helping her craft the door, hone her intuition, and face the emotions that had brought them both here. When it was finished, Mara stood back to admire their work. The door was simple, elegant, painted in hues of twilight blue. On its surface was a single silver star. "I kept thinking I had to capture all the feelings at once," Mara said, her voice thick with emotion. "But it was too much. So I picked one, the quietest one, the one that felt like him." "Sometimes," Anya said, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder, "the quietest parts of us are the loudest. All we have to do is listen." Light footsteps that always stopped before reaching the edge of the trees. As she watched, a young woman stepped into the clearing. She was small for her age, her shoulders slumped under the weight of a backpack almost as big as she was. She pushed a strand of red hair out of her face and surveyed the doors. Without speaking, Anya took a step forward. "Which one calls to you?" The girl looked up, startled. "They all do," she whispered, gesturing to the doors. "And none of them. I don't understand." Anya nodded sympathetically. She remembered those feelings well, stillness and confusion, a lack of knowing what to do with the stillness within. "Then build a new one," she said softly. The girl's eyes widened. "Me? But I've never—" "You don't have to paint it," she said, interrupting the girl's protest. "There are plenty of unpainted doors here, if you'd like to try." The girl's shoulders slumped further. "I don't even know what I'm looking for. Something for pain, I think. But it's not my pain, and I don't want to hurt him more." Anya's heart went out to her. Loss without release was a heavy burden. "Then find the color for him," she suggested. "Find the color for the part of him that's hurting, or for the part of you that hurts for him." The girl chewed her lip, considering. Then she straightened her shoulders. Hope flickered in her eyes. She looked at the doors and whispered, "Where do we start?" It fit perfectly into the facade of the House of Quiet Doors, which was becoming a permanent fixture on the map. Since she had finished building it 5 months ago, word had spread through the whispering woods in wordless ways. Travelers seeking refuge from storms both outer and inner found their way here. Every door she'd built was different, yet somehow all of them were what people needed. What had begun as a solo project was quickly turning into a shared one. She'd already given away half of her stock of unpainted doors, each one destined for someone in particular. Sometimes when the right person opened it, sometimes when the universe decided it wasn't quite yet the right time. With a sigh, Anya stepped back to admire her work. 5 months ago, this clearing had been empty, except for a weathered cedar bench and the ghost of a dying fire. Now there were 7 doors set into the trees, each ready to welcome those who felt lost in their own stories. Suddenly, she heard a sound that had become very familiar in the past few weeks. Over the next hour, Anya showed her how to listen to the trees, how to read the signs, how to feel the heartbeat of the forest. As the sun set on the second day, Mara stepped through her door. Later that week, after seeing them off on their first journey together, Anya sat on the bench, watching the clouds drift across the sky. One blustery afternoon, she felt the telltale rumble of thunder in her chest. Rain lashed against the trees. Wind tore at the branches. Lightning split the sky. In the hushed quiet of the following day, the storm-tossed skies had yielded to a peaceful calm. Anya, in turn, had been searching for something to. 4 days after Sella's return, the House of Quiet Doors glowed brighter than ever. Not with lanterns, not with magic, but with presence. People no longer came just to listen. They came to be heard by the silence. They walked the spiral paths, not to find answers, but to ask better questions. And the mountainette too, seemed to breathe a little deeper. Something was changing, not ending, but becoming. Of all the doors, the mirrors, the chimes, if you want to dive deeper, the journey doesn't have to end here. Now we pass the story back to you. What do you hear when you listen closely? How does it feel to listen without expecting anything back? Is it scary? Is it freeing? If you're willing, set an intention to listen more deeply to the world around you and within you. Maybe start today, or maybe start tomorrow. No pressure. Just like Anya's journey, your path will unfold as you walk it. Then she spoke not to the sky, not to herself, but to the space between. I am no longer the keeper of the doors, she said. I am the door that opens toward the world. She descended in silence. When she returned to the clearing, Maru was waiting. Anya smiled and handed her the shawl. They did not need a ceremony. The mountain understood. So did the clouds. Anya walked to the edge of the village that evening, passing every door she had once made. They hummed for her not a goodbye, but a blessing. She turned once at the final path. The house of quiet doors glowed in the mist behind her, and Maru stood tall now, listening, holding silence in her hands like light. The rain began to fall, soft, steady, welcoming. And as Anya disappeared into the fog-bound trail beyond the cloud mountains, she heard it. Not an echo, not a farewell, but a promise. The world is full of unopened doors, and now you know how to listen for them. One morning, before the mist had lifted from the treetops, Anya awoke to the sound of wind carrying words. Not chimes, not echoes. Words. Come to the peak. The voice wasn't hers, nor the mountains. It was the sky, and it had finally learned to speak. Anya wrapped herself in her oldest shawl, the one she had worn on the first night she followed the rain. She packed no food, no journal, only silence. Maru met her by the cedar bench. You heard it too? Anya nodded. The peak. I'll walk you halfway, Maru said. After that, I think it's yours alone. They moved quietly through the trees, the path unfolding like a poem being written in real time. Past the echo door, past the river's green shimmer, past even the last of the most stones. At the halfway tray, an old silver pine that stood like a guardian of threshold's marrow stopped. Whatever it says, she whispered, we'll listen with you, even from here. Anya placed her hand on the trunk, and then she continued alone. The path narrowed, the mist thickened, and the silence deepened. But it was not empty. It watched her, like the sky was leaning down just enough to hear the sound of her thoughts. Every step she took, she remembered. The child she had been always asking questions. No one answered. The young woman who wandered through loud cities, craving something soft. The keeper of quiet who built doors, not to shut the world out, but to invite something deeper in. She was all of them, and none of them. She was listening, becoming form. At the summit, she found a stone circle. 7 stones, each shaped like a door, each carved with a single soundless word. One of them pulsed faintly with blue light. As Anya stepped into the center, the sky shifted. Not darker, not brighter, just aware. And then it spoke. You have taught the silence to trust itself again. Anya closed her eyes. I only listened. No, said the sky. You heard. And that is rarer than most believe. Wind circled her like arms, warm and rising. There is one final door. Anya looked up. Where? Here. The center stone began to glow. Not blinding, just enough to see yourself truly. And Anya understood. The final door was her. The wind slowed. The silence deepened. You may stay in guard. The quiet you have built, said the sky. Or, it continued, you may leave and carry the quiet into places still forgotten. Both were sacred. Both were needed, and the mountain would not choose for her. Anya stood in the center of the stones, breathing the thin air that felt ancient and new. She thought of Maru, of Sela. This is the end of the story, but there's more to this world. This story was inspired by a piece of art. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, please do share your ideas below. Also, check out our previous episodes. It began with a stillness, not the gentle kind that settles after rain, not the hush of dusk, or the pause before a chime. This stillness felt hollow, heavy, like the world was holding its breath and forgetting why. Even the wind stopped moving. Maru noticed it first. One morning, she walked to the white door to leave her daily feather, something she'd done every day since the rain returned. But that morning, the feather didn't stir. No breeze, no sound. Even the trees seemed uncertain. She turned to Anya, who stood nearby, her gaze fixed on the mountains. "Something's missing," Maru whispered. Anya nodded slowly. They waited for the chime above the river to ring. It didn't. Not once. And that's when the first child vanished. Her name was Sella, 7 winters old. Bright laugh, gentle hand. She had drawn the spiral paths around the house with her own chalk stones. One moment, she had been walking the blue path barefoot, eyes closed, whispering a rhyme about wind and dreams. The next only a voice remained, echoing once, and then nothing. No one saw her go. No trail, no sound, only the faint scent of salt in the air, like tears that had never been shed. The villagers gathered in the clearing. Anya stood at the center. "This is not a loss," she said gently. "This is an echo." "What do you mean?" someone asked. Anya closed her eyes. Sella's still near, but something is holding her voice. That night, Anya dreamt of a door she'd never built. It was made of fog, and behind it, the sound of Sella's laughter, looping endlessly, but soft as if underwater. She woke with her heart racing. So did Maru. "I heard her too," the girl whispered. But she wasn't calling for help. What was she doing? Anya asked. Maru looked toward the trees. She was listening. They formed a circle beneath the old cedar the next morning. 12 people. 12 hearts, each holding a stone warmed by candlelight. Together, they listened, not for footsteps, not for cries, but for the echo that remained. It came just after sunrise, a faint giggle, like wind through glass bells. Then, one word, carried across the forest by something older than voice. Here Anya opened her eyes. She's inside the hollow grove. The hollow grove lay at the edge of the far ridge, where the fog never fully lifted, and the trees grew in wide, silent circles. No one had walked there in years. The path was overgrown, the ground soft with forgotten moss and stories not told. As they stepped into it, the trees leaned inward, not threatening, but watchful. Anya whispered. We walked gently, like silence, walking on silence. Maru held her hand. In the heart of the grove, they found it not Sella, a mirror round, floating inches above the moss, not glass, but water still, rippling outward without source, and from it came Sella's voice, not trapped, but speaking. I found the part of silence no one was listening to. Anya knelt before the mirror. Sella, can you hear me? Yes, the voice replied, but I'm not gone. I stepped inside the place that holds the echoes no one else hears. Maru whispered. She found the forgotten silence. Anya felt tears rise. Do you want to come back? She asked. There was a long pause. Then, not yet. There are others here. They're waiting to be remembered. The villagers stood in stillness, watching. The mirror shimmered. Then it opened. From within the reflection, figures emerged, not whole. Not ghosts, but memories. Children who had once wandered into quiet too deep. Old souls who had left without saying goodbye. Fragments of stories unfinished. They did not speak, but they were felt. Sella appeared last, eyes bright, holding something in her hands. A note. She handed it to Anya. It read, "Every silence leaves a shadow. But if you listen long enough, even shadows begin to sing." That evening, Sella returned. No ceremony, just a soft step into the light. A smile, and a simple sentence. I was never lost. I just followed the quiet where it wanted to go. They welcomed her with open arms. No questions, no fear, only listening. And the house of quiet doors hummed once more. This time, not in mourning, but in memory. They placed the mirror in the grove, where it would remain, not as a trap, but as a passage. a place for echoes that needed space, a home for silence that had nowhere else to go. And beside it, they built a new door, round, pale, marked with a single symbol. Infinity Anya called it the Echo Door. It did not open like the others. It invited